And an apology, Kathy would normally be here controlling the ship, but she's come down with COVID. So you're going to have to make my technical ineptitude. So if it doesn't quite go as smoothly, blame COVID.
Cool. Thanks, Nick. So firstly, apologies, I'm going to be dashing off. I was saying before, I've actually got to go and give a presentation to a school about apprenticeship choices. So today I'm having to prioritise young people because it's a long-standing commitment. The other thing, welcome to Judith. Judith is one of our trustees. She joined just as we were going into lockdown and hasn't had the chance to meet any trainers, see the programs. And so we're on a bit of a catch up of introducing her to trainers so she can get a feel for the programs. Also, she's really happy, would love to come along to see any programs, offers herself up as a guest speaker. She's got a really interesting career as a barrister and various other roles. So I'm sure Judith will say more later on. And really it's just to touch base, say hello, and a couple of things I was writing a report recently about risks and looking at the economy and thinking, is the sort of economic position at the moment impacting on personal development? Because traditionally, when we have a challenging economic time, we see that learning and development budgets get cut first. We're not seeing that at the moment. I think that there's a really interesting dynamic with the fact that we've got high employment rates, that people are wanting to keep hold of their staff. And so they're seeing investment in training programs and internal promotions, etc., as something that's really quite important. So we're seeing that in the market at the moment. I think I'm keeping quite a close eye in terms of if the employment rate changes, if we suddenly find that we're dipping into recession, if we see anything that we spot, we'll share that with you. But at the moment, it feels quite buoyant in terms of the conversations that we're having with people across all of our personal development programs. So we haven't seen that drop off that you'd normally see with economic challenges coming in, which I'm hoping is something that you were seeing as well. And certainly Nick can talk about how we're sort of looking at posts, focusing on personal development to try and support you all with the sort of ongoing social media development. And the only other thing is just to ask a bit of a question really, is every sort of quarter or so, I try and get around my team around the country, just sort of holding little drop-in sessions so that members of staff who are positioned in different places around the country can catch up. And I'm feeling very much that we always seem to speak remotely. And if I were going to put a few dates out where I was going to be in a sort of semi-convenient place, would anyone be interested in meeting up, actually face-to-face rather than just online? Because I'm feeling a little bit onlined out at the moment. So the general question out there, if it's something that you'd like, I'm more than happy to travel around the country to a few places and try and meet up with as many of you as I can, and maybe even get a few of you together at the same time, which would be really, really nice. But I'm getting nods, so I'll put some dates out. I'm assuming that summer holidays are going to be quite busy, so maybe aiming for September, October would be the best thing. But I'll pop a note out and we'll get some, try and coordinate something. So I don't want to take too much of your time. As ever, if you want to get hold of me, you've all got my mobile, please feel free to give me a call at any time. I'm always delighted to hear from you. And I'll leave you in the capable hands of Nick and Damien.
Thank you.
If I disappear off in a few minutes, then you know where I am.
Thank you, Andrew. If I can just share my screen, I will put our slides up. Just bear with me 2 seconds. Slideshow. Can you see that slide? Or is nothing showing yet? No. Okay.
Kathy will be loving this.
Yes, I know. End show. Let me try something else. This is why I shouldn't be allowed to drive. Right. Presentation. Share. Do we now have can you now see that slide?
Yes.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you. Anyway, so welcome to our training webinar of the 28th of June. Just for UDIT's benefit, we try to run these at least once a quarter, and there's a couple of objectives. One is to try and disseminate any information or learnings that we have found as a business, which we think is useful for trainers. But what we also try and do is give some learning about some of the work that we are doing that potentially each of the trainees can take into their own businesses to try and grow and develop their own learner base. So today we're going to be talking about content marketing, which is the backbone of our marketing effort at the moment. So the agenda for today, we're going to start off with Damien giving an update on a program we've been running called Springboard Supplements. I'll then give you a quick marketing update about where we are, about where the brand is and how you can access that. A bit of a talk about content marketing and how that you can use it, and then back to Damien to talk about royalties. I intend this to be less than an hour, with a chance at the end for just a Q&A, a chance to air any views, ask questions, or suggest future topics. So Damien, if I can hand over to you, that would be fantastic.
Thanks, Nick. Morning, everyone. Good to see you and talk through Springboard Supplements. So, just a reminder to get everyone sort of onto the same on the same page. What is Springboard Supplements? Last year we did a follow-up with all of our participants. So as you're aware, just about every participant that goes through a Springboard program completes an online evaluation. And thank you for everyone on this call who promotes that. Really useful to get the feedback, and of course that sits across all programs. So what we did is a follow-up to that, splitting out past participants into how long it had been since they had gone through. And I think a couple of calls ago, myself and Nick shared the responses, which were all extremely positive around how people had continued their learning and what sort of impact the programs had had on them. But as part of that, we asked previous participants what would they find useful as refresher training. And so out of that survey was born Springboard Supplements, which essentially were short topics that allowed us to recap, refresh, and also perhaps introduce some slightly newer concepts. The idea behind it was to allow previous participants to continue to access something through Springboard, something that they would associate with the Springboard brand and the training that we do. And we also wanted to play around with the concept that would this be something that perhaps could be marketed on its own? Could it be something that you could go back to clients with 6 to 12 months after the program, and would be a useful conversation starter, perhaps to engage again with clients you'd worked with? So we've piloted communication skills and resilience, as those are the two most requested topics. Now we're concluding the pilots tomorrow, so we've got a final session tomorrow on communication skills, and then we'll obviously collate all of the information. But I wanted to share what sort of the feedback we've had so far and what our thoughts are. So in terms of the feedback, if you just go on to the next slide, Nick. We asked a number of questions, as we always do with Springboard programs. And these are the sort of highlights. So in terms of the topics, so we are asking around 4 or 5 of the topics that we introduce on those calls. Actually, the feedback's been really positive. On the resilience session, we're averaging sort of 8.1 out of 10 in terms of their satisfaction with the topics that were covered. Slightly higher for communication skills at 8.6 out of 10. And then we asked about the facilitation. Now, this is really about the trainer's ability to hold the engagement of the participants, but again, both very high scores. We asked about recommendation, and that is recommendation of the Springboard supplement. So of the training that people have had, would they recommend it? And fantastic that we get 100% across both programs. And we've also, of course, asked people at the end of it, are they interested in future topics, future sessions? And again, fantastic to see that 100% of the people that attended wanted to know about future sessions that we would run. The other question we asked, which we thought was a brave question to ask, but we thought it would be really useful, was we asked participants to put a value onto the training that they had. So we're very conscious that lots of organisations run free sessions. And what we wanted to understand is, if someone was just to attend this and based on how they felt the session went, what would it be worth to them? Now, this was because at some point we want to explore whether these sorts of things can be things that we would put on centrally as a consultancy, or potentially we would equip trainers in the network to deliver. And we wanted to get some sort of sense of, actually, if we were to have 20, 30, 40 people on a session virtually, could we actually justify creating a charge for that? We're not necessarily intending to do that, but we wanted to get some understanding. And so interestingly, across the resilience and comm skills, the average value that people placed on this session, well, it was £26 for resilience. That wasn't lots of people saying £26, that was the average value that came out. And communication skills averaged out at 20. And as I say, we've got extra evaluations to come through from communication skills tomorrow, and that will allow us to conclude the analysis. So in terms of what we're intending to do with it, I'm sorry, I should also mention the positive comments. That's just an extract of some of the comments that came out. The overriding sense was this was really good, it was really useful. And although we had a few instances of people signing up and then not attending, which I think we can all appreciate sometimes happens, especially if you put something on for free. I think the job certainly that Scarlett did through the sort of regular comms and reminder of these events starting meant that most people actually attended and stuck around with the sessions. So moving on to the next slide, what sort of the next steps are going to be? So as I say, we want to get the final feedback from the session tomorrow. That's right. So we want to review that and just update some of the feedback stats. What we then want to do is have a discussion, but I'm really interested to hear people's views on what they would decide to do it. So we've got some decisions to make around how we use supplements. And to be honest, there doesn't necessarily have to be one answer. The things that we are thinking through is, well, number one, we've proven that people like it as a feedback, as a refresher session to a course that they've been on. So actually, would it be something we could run? Let's say we could run it each month, and we can invite participants back from previous programs. And again, we just refresh their knowledge on a particular topic. We've got potentially 4 other topics that we know we would develop because the demand is there for them from the survey that we did. So we could run it centrally as a consultancy. We could invite your participants on. Actually, trainers on the call today could host it. That might be something that we do. I think the intention would be we'd probably run those as open sessions, so it doesn't matter where the participant participated, whether it's on one of your programs, whether it's one of ours. I think everyone would be welcome to join it. Potentially, it might be something we would give to you as the training community and say, here you go, here's the collateral, here's how we think it should be run. And you can go back to your clients, 6-12 months after you've run a program with them and say, hey, I've got this refresher session, might be useful. So again, if that's a client you're working with, that might be useful. And the other side of it we see is potentially it's very useful as a taster session for people new to the program. So if someone's thinking of, well, what's this Springboard about? Let's have a session and find out. Again, you could use it to demo it. We could perhaps run it centrally if you wanted. You could refer people to it. There's a number of ways I think we could use these sessions. So I'm all ears as to what people think about it. The other thing I think I should mention is we did run this as a participant session, so hopefully no one feels offended. We didn't invite all the trainers to come onto it because we wanted to run it with the participants first. So myself and Nick have agreed that we'll arrange a session for both of these, so you can actually experience it, you can participate in it, so you can see what the resilience communication skills sessions are like. And then again, I appreciate that might influence your thinking about what we do with it as well. But I'm open to feedback if you want to give me some feedback now through the chat, or essentially just shout out your questions or feedback now.
Damien, I put a question in the chat. How long are the sessions?
So they're targeted at an hour. So they both ended up round about 40 minutes in terms of delivering content. And then there was, it was reasonably interactive because it was quite a small cohort. So again, then there's questions and answers that can come after it.
Damien, I don't know if you see the chat. There's a couple of questions in there.
So Shindu, no, they weren't from one organisation, they were from many. So what we did is we targeted organisations where the consultancy had run a programme. So we had people from all over different programmes. Again, that's one of the questions around the flexibility of these sessions. Is it best to have it as everyone can join in, or do you want to target it on a particular organisation? I think in terms of effectiveness, it's probably best to open it up to more organisations so that you can get more people on. But similarly, if you went back to a single client that you'd worked with, again, I can see that working really well as well. In terms of the numbers, so after tomorrow's session, it would have been based on around about 30 to 35 people across both sessions, Liz, to answer your question. So I appreciate we perhaps want to build up a bit more, but I think it's a reasonably representative sample of what we've got. Any other thoughts about how people could see it being used?
Could I just ask, who's we? Who delivered the sessions?
So the sessions were delivered by Max, who I think most of you know in the network. So the sessions were created by ourselves based on the feedback we got from the survey that we ran to past participants, and then we worked with Max to actually create the learning objectives and deliver the session. And again, Hugh, that's something we'll make sure that everyone can experience on this call. We'll create some sessions so you can be a participant in it and see what you think of it.
I think there is an opportunity to have conversations with like existing clients, for example, my clients, and I think in the main that there is sometimes the desire for the cohort to regroup as a cohort rather than have a real mix, because and obviously 40 minutes by the time you're in, it's very, very fast, isn't it? Because networking, supporting each other is almost like a pillar of the Springboard program. And I have known, like I say, an organisation, and it's come from the actual women themselves on the program rather than like HR or L&D from that department saying we want another follow-up. And the feedback from that has been where, like I say, they've spent the time, they've regrouped, they've gone back into the home groups, they've really been able to support each other, and picked upon perhaps some of the work that they've done, almost running it like another day, but day 5. And perhaps then the morning part could be almost, like I say, picking up as to what the progress has been, where are they, etc., etc. And then, these could be perhaps, if it was in a whole day, some modules, if you want to call it, saying, like, hey, now 40 minutes is doable, isn't it, really? And actually, because communication is another thing that we've obviously picked up in the program. So I can see as a, like I say, a client, and obviously there's something there perhaps early on, almost like sowing the seed with the cohort directly as a trainer, on workshop 4, because workshop 4 is about the future. How are we going to keep this going? To say, well, okay, let's get the diaries, let's diarise 6 months from now. Is that what the majority are saying? And then almost have an extra day bolt on with some of these modules. I can see it like that. That's my view. Thank you.
Thanks, Shindu.
So Damien, what do you see as the next steps, just so we can temper expectations?
So I think there's 2 or 3 things next steps. As I mentioned, we'll run the final session tomorrow and collate all the remaining feedback. Myself and Nick can then make sure we share with you the full results. This is what we're thinking. We'll then organise a couple of sessions to make sure you have the opportunity to experience it. We'll take any further feedback you have around the development of it, and then we'll work through with this community online and say, okay, this is how we think it can be used. I love the idea, Shindu, of you having it sort of in your toolkit. So when you're doing follow-up with clients, you can say, okay, this is how it will work. I think we said right from the start, we're developing this as training for the network to use. So I don't see why we wouldn't share it and make sure everyone's comfortable using it. And then we'll toy around with the idea, because we have invited a couple of people on who have shown an interest in the program that we've been liaising with. We've shown them through one of these modules, and we're interested to see whether that had a positive impact on their decision around whether they wanted to take on a Springboard program or not. So again, I think what we'll do is we'll share the results, we'll share our thoughts, and then we'll share with you what we see going forward, and invite you to the sessions and take it from there. But I think it sounds like having it in, say, in the toolkit for you to be able to use however you want with your clients, whether it be for prospective clients in the future, or as Shindu described, for follow-ups to cohorts afterwards. That sounds like that would work well as well. And as I say, there's 4 other topic areas that we've been exploring, so we can look to get those developed in the same way. Have a reflection as well about what I've shown. Again, just like Andrew said, just contact me afterwards if you've got any other feedback or any other thoughts around it. But thanks for listening, and as I say, we'll get some more information out shortly.
Thank you, Damien. If any questions pop to mind, either stick them in chat, or we can catch up at the end, or email them through. We're all ears. So moving on, just a quick update on marketing before we go into the substantive topic. A couple of points to note. We have been working with Julia and Sue on some of the new branding and made some updates to those, so they are better suited to the trainers and the trainer network. We've created those into a file, and we will reshare that link to everybody after the event, so everybody's got all of the new logos and guidelines so that they can be used accordingly. Another project that I'm working on, and a lot of thanks to Hugh and to Patricia who are helping me and Scarlett on this. We are creating a PDF document of feedback from the sessions that we did earlier on this year. We shared some ideas with Hugh and Patricia last week. We've got some amends that Scarlett and I are working on, and hopefully we'll be able to come up with some marketing collateral that you can use with new and existing clients to show the long-term benefit of your programs to your clients. So the power of content. Just to put you in a bit of context, Andrew at the beginning spoke about the impact of potential recession and the cost of living, and how is that impacting on organizations. As Andrew said, we're not seeing that. We're continuing to see continued growth. And to give you some sort of idea, for our financial year from April, the number of visitors to our website on the Springboard Consultancy website is up 13.28%. From the same period last year. Our LinkedIn followers in that period are up 10%, and we're seeing like sales continue to grow for the same period. So there is still growth out there in the market. So how are we achieving that? The biggest backbone to what we're doing is what we basically call content marketing, and I think this is something that you as trainers can begin to grasp and take into your own business. Effectively, what it is the process of planning, creating, and sharing interesting and engaging content to your various networks, whether that be via your websites, via blogs, via social media, in order to try and not only engage with your existing clients, but also to get that content shared around other people's networks, so you can bring like-minded people into your target audience. This is something that we've now been doing for the last 7 or 8 months, and we are posting on a regular basis daily posts on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and that content has a number of different formats. Why is it important? Well, firstly, it educates your leads and prospects about your products and services you're offering. We've got on our network on LinkedIn, for example, 1,200 followers. Those 1,200 followers all have their own networks. So if you think of the multiplier effect, if you can come up with some content which will engage with that audience and that is then shared, you're very easily at virtually no cost getting your name and message out to thousands of potential new customers. What it also does is boost your conversions. So we do a lot of work driving people to our website and to our social media, but what our content does is actually begin to show us as an authoritative figure in the personal and professional development space, and begins to show the credibility of what Springboard Consultancy can add to your organization. It begins to build relationships between your customers and businesses that result in increased loyalty. So again, by creating engaging content, you are getting your customers and your participants coming back to look at what you are doing and then potentially growing future sales. It shows your audience how your product or services solve their challenges. A lot of what you do, if you go onto the Springboard LinkedIn page, for example, what we are doing is identifying problems, challenges, issues, concerns that businesses face. And what we're doing is putting over a solution. What you'll note is that what we're not doing is putting out overt sales messages every day. We tend to do sales messages once a week, but the rest of it is based around different topics. And this comes out of what we're talking about, Springboard supplements. We put out articles on resilience, aggression versus assertiveness, imposter syndrome, personal branding, all bits of information that people can really take away and begin to use, so they begin to see the Springboard Consultancy or your business, when you begin to create content, as an authority in that field. So people are constantly coming back and sharing you and your name. And one of the big reasons also for doing it is search engine optimization, how people find you online. We've done a lot of work of looking at what people search and how do people find us. Is that through women's development, men's development, professional development at work, and identifying what those keywords are, and then using that to create content. So we know what people are looking for out in the marketplace. So let's create content that allows people to find us. And particularly on blogs on your website is a fantastic way to drive traffic, because Google will come to your site with its robots, it will crawl all over your site. And if it sees content such as blogs, which are rich in the keywords of the areas that you want to sell to potential clients, you will be higher up the rankings. And what we're seeing is, for many of these keywords, we are quite quickly moving up Google's pecking order from where we could have been on page 4 or 5. We're now finding ourselves on page 1 and 2, and that's all about creating that engaging content. Content marketing can take a number of forms. Social media is biggest for us, because we work in that sphere where lots of our potential clients, and yours, will be working on LinkedIn. So what I would say to you, if you don't follow us on LinkedIn, please follow us. You'll see what our content is, and vice versa. Let us know when you are posting content. We will go out there, we will comment, engage, and we will share it to our network. So the more that we can make this content go viral, the better growth that we'll see for all of us. Infographics, that's trying to take a topic and make it graphically represented. I've got an example of that coming up, and we use that a lot. And what we'll do on LinkedIn, instead of writing a long text post, we'll create an infographic to explain a particular topic. And then what we always try and do is encourage people to come and comment and engage with that. And how does that work as a sales tool? Well, firstly, it gets people engaged with our brand. But what secondly, Scarlett will do on a weekly basis, she will look at our new followers, discuss those with our sales team, and then reach out to those that match our profile and try and get a link and a connection with them. So what we've tried to do is we've given them content they're interested in, they've engaged, we have then got a warm lead to go out on LinkedIn and try and engage with. Blogs, that's content based on your own website, unless you use blogging software. This is where SEO comes in, and identifying the keywords which are important to you as a business. And I am quite happy to share the research that we've done on what people are using in order to find Springboard on our website, so you can begin to use those keywords in your content. Video is becoming more important. YouTube, for example, is the second biggest search engine in the world behind Google. A bit more difficult and complicated to do. But in a minute, I'll just show you a couple of examples, and you'll find them on the Springboard LinkedIn page of some of the content that we've done with the help of some of the training network. Podcasts, we're all aware of what podcasts are. Again, this is another level of sophistication, something we want to look at potentially in the future, where you begin to actually run podcasts for your target audience. And then paid content. So this is creating content on, for example, LinkedIn or Facebook, and then paying for them to boost that into a particular target audience. So we can create a social media post based around a particular topic. We can then go into LinkedIn and we'll select a profile of, let's say, learning and development professionals within this geographical area, this seniority in companies of this size, and it will try and put that content in front of them. In fact, it's actually a very, very cost-effective way of trying to generate traffic. You're talking tens of pounds to get in front of a few thousand people. We're not talking a huge investment, and it's something that we've managed to drive some very good leads from. So here's some examples of some of the social posts that we've done. What the first one is a good example is where we've taken a report which has recently been released, the FTSE Women's Leaders Review, which basically looks at how women in some of the larger companies and how their boards are made up and how that has changed over time. So that's very relevant to particularly the Springboard market. And then we've used that to try and create engagement and put our own commentary around it about how that growth has been growing over the years, and how Springboard potentially can then go on to help companies achieve that aim. We've written articles. We did a article with a recent trainer, Rachel, about her Springboard journey and how she decided to leave her current role and then become a trainer, and what that involved, why she did it, and what her aspirations are for the future. So this is again content to try and, what we're trying to do is humanize what we do. So we've got a human face to Springboard. So this is what a trainer is all about. This is where they've come from, and this is what their motivation in life is for. And we've also created some video content, and these are two different examples. The one on the left, I believe Chris is on the call, so thank you very much for your help in this. Scarlett did an interview with Chris, but instead of just creating it as an audible content, what Scarlett's gone and done is then create it into basically a pseudo text chat. So if you go onto our website, you'll see this video and this chat unfold as if it was being taken place across on a mobile phone. And this is just to try and make it stand out and be a bit different to what other people are doing in the marketplace, because more and more people are doing videos, and the engagement potentially with just a audible interview one-on-one is quite limited. So what we're trying to do is make things a little bit different. And the other side of the coin is we have done interviews with particular trainers where we've done a face-to-face video, normally over Zoom, on particular topics, trying to again create that human face of what Springboard is all about. So how do you create a content marketing strategy? Well, firstly, you've got to have SMART goals. What is it that you're trying to achieve? For the consultancy, those goals are very clear. What we want to do is we want to grow our number of visitors to our website. We want to grow the number of people that follow the Springboard LinkedIn page, for example. And most importantly, we want to make sure that we create engagement. So our KPIs are number of LinkedIn followers, click-throughs to our website, and engagement is measured by the number of either clicks from the website or commenting or sharing our posts. There's no point putting up posts which nobody sees and nobody engages with. We test a lot of different content to try and maximize the impact of those. Choose your content channels. Where do you think your market is most likely to be? In our case, for when we're looking to talk to the larger organizations, we think LinkedIn is one of our most important channels, as well as Google for the search engine optimization. But when we were particularly looking to fill our open programs, we get quite a bit of traction from Facebook as well. Areas such as Instagram and TikTok tend not to be our target market. LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook tend to hit the sweet spot for either corporates or open programs. Decide on your type of content, dependent on what resource and time you have available to us. Posts on LinkedIn are relatively straightforward to do. What we do is we have a content calendar, so we map it out in advance. When we get, what Scarlett does is then build that content so that we're ahead of the game. So we begin to publish that on a daily basis to create that engagement. Set a budget. We invest a small amount in paid content, but for you as a trainer, the beauty of content marketing through social media channels is it doesn't have to cost you anything. All it does is costing you the time to put together your plan, your content, put it live on LinkedIn, and then getting that shared and engaged with. And as I said, if we know that you're posting content, we will either see it and share it, engage with it, or if you're posting something, let me or Scarlett know, and we will go in and proactively try and help share that around our network. And that comes from when you create and distribute that content, we'll make sure that we get that to the best people. Then analyze and measure your results. What Scarlett does is has a spreadsheet of all the different content. So we're beginning to get a good idea of what works and what doesn't work. What works well for the consultancy is particularly content with a human face. So we're actually beginning to show real people with real results. That tends to get the best engagement, because it shows that there is a personal side to what we do, and we're in a people business, and that seems to give us certainly the best outcomes. Useful resources so you can learn more. Well, number one resource, Scarlett and we're here to help. So if you want some ideas or thoughts, please give us a shout. We use a system called HubSpot. They've got a HubSpot Academy, which is free to get into. But it's absolutely crammed full of useful sales and marketing content. But it's a great resource for content marketing as well as other topics. But it will give you a step-by-step guide. And if you look on the right-hand side and Google HubSpot content creation resource, there is a whole package of information and tools to help you deliver a content marketing plan. There's the Content Marketing Institute. Again, Google those, lots of great ideas, hints and tips. There is a tool, Google are great with free tools, Google Trends, which helps you basically show what people are searching for in particular topic areas. Google content marketing in training, and there's thousands of ebooks and case studies. So just simply Google those. And then if you want to help with designing and putting information together, there is a tool called Canva, which at the basic level is free. It's a tool that we work with all the time, which is really user-friendly and intuitive way of driving really good topics. But as I say, reach out to Scarlett and I for thoughts, ideas, help, particularly with the keywords. For example, if you want to know what people are searching for, we're more than willing to help you. That's what we're here for. So that is my whistle-stop tour of content marketing. I don't expect it all to necessarily sink in, but it just gives you some idea about how we have been creating growth in the last 7 to 8 months through what is very cost-effective and targeted communication to people that we want to talk to. Do we have any questions? I'm happy to engage offline as well if anybody's got any other questions.
Nick, it's Karen here. I've got a question. Hi, it's great materials, really interesting, particularly for somebody like me who's not very social media savvy. Really quite interesting, quite interesting presentation. So thank you very much for that. Really helpful. I have a question around, so a lot of the content, I realize you're talking about the human face, and it makes sense to me. And I think that's one of the things that is very effective. And I've seen some of the content on Facebook, particularly, and on LinkedIn. I was wondering whether there was any thinking about interviewing or putting a human face to a participant. So a lot of the content is around the trainer's human face, but is there any rule or any idea? Is it not something that we deliberately choose not to interview participants?
No, completely opposite, Karen. It's something we are proactively, is on our radar, and something that we want to do. We think actually participants is a fantastic way to do. We've been somewhat hand-tied with COVID, etc., but now we're getting back to more face-to-face. It's something that we definitely want to do. I think that would be incredibly powerful. We do use a lot of case studies and written testimonials from participants, but we certainly do want to do more video content with participants. So if you've got access, if your participants are happy to do it, I would wholly recommend that you try and do that, because that's the gold dust. That's showing the real benefits.
And guest speakers, I suppose, would also be something that I can see, really sort of snippets of guest speaker talks might be.
If you look through some of our content, we've got videos with a lot of the organisations we work with some of the trainer networks, and also people within Springboard. I think creating that personality and that face of the brand, but also the whole outcomes of having gone through a Springboard or Navigator program. I think that's the greatest selling tool that we have. So the more you can get out of your participants and get it into your social media and onto your websites, the better. And I'd say if you're a bit nervous about how you would do that technically, please reach out to us, and we'll give you some help where we can.
Thank you.
Nick, just a quick one, just on the back of that then. Is there some documentation that needs to be completed, that the person's given consent, that they're happy that it can be used? Where do we? Yeah,
we particularly with if you're talking to participants, it is always better to get them to sign a brief document, just saying that you're allowing them to use that content. Just make sure you're very clear up front. It should never be an issue, because they're giving their time freely, and they know what they are doing. But it does help cover you if they've signed something to say, I'm happy to use this content. If you want an example, I can send you one.
Thank you.
So someone just Hudit, you've someone has put on social media useful on something. Really useful. If you look if everyone's got access to the chat, Hudit has put a useful link to some information to help get a better understanding of LinkedIn marketing and LinkedIn inbound. So that's great. So dive into that as well. And as I say, reach out to me and Scarlett, because I know how LinkedIn works, and Scarlett is a whiz when it comes to the creative and writing of content. So let's not try and reinvent the wheel. We are here to help. Any more questions on content? I will circulate all this, and if anybody wants to set up a one-to-one chat to go through it in more detail, you can just give me a bell.
I understood that more people are visiting the website and more people involved in the LinkedIn network. Is the consultancy running more programs now as a result of the growth that you spoke about?
We are certainly seeing more programs this year than year on year. So for the first 3 months, or the first quarter of this year, we are seeing, I believe, a 30% increase on the same period last year. It's very difficult because of the 2-year hiatus that we've had to really understand where we are and where we should be. But as far as leads, conversations, bookings going, we're feeling a real positive upsurge in the market. I think it's very difficult with all the stuff in the media to get a bit negative about what the future looks like, but we simply aren't seeing that. I think what Andrew said at the beginning is that with virtually full employment, people are looking for ways to hold on to staff and to encourage them to stay, and that's the message that we're getting from the people that we are talking to. So I think the market is more buoyant than people would think.
And Nick, on the back of that, do you see an increase on online training or face-to-face training?
We're beginning to see some come back to face-to-face, but a lot of it is still being run remotely. I think a lot of companies are seeing the benefits of not having people taken out the road, and the ability to be able to pull people in across the country and not necessarily just the one site onto remote. I think as we go over, as we sort of come more out of the pandemic, I would expect, and Damien might want to be able to comment more on this on the operational side, but I think we will begin to move more back to face-to-face, but I don't think we're going to get to a period where we lose remote completely. I think people are now very used to that sort of training and the flexibility it gives. Is that a fair reflection, Damien?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, actually, the blended option is coming quite popular. So this is where maybe two of the sessions are face-to-face, typically the first one and the last one, and then in between, as a sort of natural evolution of the home group sort of concept, the 2 days in between tend to be remote. And of course, you've got the cut up of the session. So maybe it's a day face-to-face, then it's the 2 days become 4 sessions online, right? As half days, and then they finish off with a final day. I mean, I think to summarize it, people have realized there are more choices they can make about the way the content is delivered. And I think one of the huge benefits of online is people have realized, as with the whole, working remotely concept, is that actually it doesn't detract too much from the power of the messaging that's getting across and the engagement that you get with people. There's still a massive art to running engaging sessions online, but I think people are a little bit more savvy now about the way it's done. Don't get me wrong, there are some sectors, some organizations that absolutely want it face to face because they think that's the way forward, but yeah, I think there's much more choice now.
It's sorry, I'm just thinking out loud. I don't mean to hog the call, but it just makes me think about the supplement courses as well, and this engagement and wanting to meet again, and sort of that sort of bonding that happens amongst them, whether there's a difference from an online session. I suppose a blended version would be the best. You have the experience of both, and you might get more follow-up engagement from that as well, wanting to meet again. But yeah, it'd be just interesting if at some point we could do an analysis how that, I mean, at some further down the line, obviously. I think it'd just be interesting how it's different.
Yeah, I think what most people are commonly asking for is that they want to meet with a purpose. So if there's some good content, I don't think it matters whether it's online or face-to-face. I think sometimes maybe some of the engagement might drift a little bit is if you have an online event and for whatever reason it's not engaging or it's not the purpose that people wanted. I think that's when you tend to get drift, or you tend to get people saying, it's not as good as face-to-face. So yeah, I think you keep it purposeful. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you. Obviously our doors are open for any more questions going forward. So move on to the next slide. Back to you, Damien.
Thanks. So royalties, I'm going to cover this quickly. It may be something you want to reflect on afterwards and give me some feedback privately, or absolutely happy to take it as a group. So royalties, hopefully most people are well, they should be aware of the concept of and the implementation of royalties. So essentially, this is where you finish your program, you declare your earnings, and then you pay a percentage back to the Springboard consultancy for what you've done. We are going to change the royalty process. So let me just take you through it on the next slide. So from the 1st of September, we're changing the process. So rather than submitting a royalty survey submission, which leads to you either an invoice being generated from ourselves or you making an online payment, we're actually going to follow on from the workbook orders So what this essentially means is when you place your orders for your course, we will make a per participant charge based on the workbook order that you've put in of £25, rather than you calculating a percentage of your royalties at the end. So we're going to start this from the 1st of September. So obviously for programs that you're currently running, you can continue to use the old process until this new process comes in. But let me just try and explain why on the next slide as to why we're doing this. So the current royalties process, you just gone on a couple of slides there, Nick. Yeah, so the current process, and I need to be very honest and say it doesn't work for us. I know some of you have given feedback about the process saying you don't particularly like it, but primarily this is being driven by the fact that we don't see the process working very well. So it's very inefficient. It's time consuming for us, again, being very honest. And it's prone to lots of errors, and they range from actually not getting royalty submissions, late submissions, and also quite often the calculations that come through are incorrect. And we have been, what's the best way of saying it? We have been told by auditors that this isn't the best way of doing a process in terms of timely collection of monies and attributing to the correct way of recognising them in the management accounts. So we've done some analysis. The £25 amount we believe is fair. So we did analysis of the royalties for the last few years, and obviously where we've got the figures in terms of the number of participants and the overall fee, etc., etc. So we've done some calculation. We believe £25 is right. It's fair. It's slightly below if we were to do this retrospectively as a participant amount against the royalties, against the number of individuals that attend a course. We think it's fair. And we will be putting a delay into the invoice process, because clearly we recognise that workbooks are ordered at the start of a programme, and then you run the programme for 3 or 4 months, and then you collect the income from your client, or in some cases you might be paid beforehand. So we are going to delay the requirement to collect the participant fee to give you time to run the programme and collect the money with the client. But essentially we need to put this process in place. I'm not going to hide behind the fact that it's the auditors saying we're doing something wrong. They don't like the way we do it, and they do report that it's not a good process. But actually the hope being is if we can make this a slightly more efficient process, then like anything, as a small team, we can concentrate on other things that don't take up this time, and that's primarily things like, you know, the extra support we can give the network. So the plan is to change it from the 1st of September. It will mean a slight amendment because royalties is a contracted item. It sits within your licenses. So we will send out new licenses which articulate the difference. And it's something we've been doing with the corporate clients that we manage for a couple of years now. And it seems to work fine. And again, the process works much better where we can tie the two things together. I appreciate I've come from that in a very factual way, but again, if you've got feedback or any concerns, then do let me know.
Sorry, Damien, Karen here again, and apologies if I'm not picking this up quite so as quickly as I should, but just to be clear, does that mean that instead of paying the 15% royalty that we used to pay on the cost of the course,
yep,
we're actually going to be asked to pay £25 on every book that we have ordered, assuming we've ordered the right number of books per participant? So it's just an additional 25%, not additional, a payment of 25% per participant.
Per participant,
Okay.
That's correct, yeah. And again, there will be some people that might feel they're slightly worse off. There'll be similarly other people that are slightly better off. We've tried to find the middle ground. £25 is slightly below the average participant fee that would be the equivalent if we broke it back on the royalty payments. And again, we'll cushion the blow with a delay in the request for payment on those participant fees. So essentially what will happen is, if let's say you order, I know sometimes your clients pay for the books for you, but essentially when the workbooks are ordered through BookSource and through Mimeo, we get obviously the information through to us. We will then look at that information. We know obviously the accounts that have ordered them. We will then raise an invoice to say, well, you've ordered 10 workbooks for sake of argument. That equates to 10 people participating in a program. So there's an invoice for £250 that would go to you. We will delay that payment for 3 months. So you don't have to pay it straight away. And actually, depending on when we run the program report, it may be as long as 3 months after you've actually ordered the workbook. So we could be talking up to 6 months before we would ask for payment of that fee, and therefore we hope that would allow you obviously to get payment through your client. Sorry, Liz, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I'm a bit gobsmacked by that actually. It's you know, when I'm being mindful and noticing how I feel physically. That's a big jump for me, from paying between £500 and £600 for 32 participants, which I usually have. And I've always done my reports. That's a big jump, and somehow you've got to then pass it on to the client. Right. Is there VAT on top of that as well, or is it just the £25?
Just the £25. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean that's a big jump for me. So it's a bit of a blur. I don't know about other people, but that's just, yeah. It just feels a bit, not a kick in the teeth, but you just think, you know, I'm running programs, I'm paying what I've paid. I get from the consultancy side of things, it's not very efficient, and from the auditors, but actually as a trainer who is delivering the program and bringing some money into the consultancy, yep. It feels a bit harsh. Okay.
Do you tend to always get then, Liz, 32 people or those higher numbers then on your courses?
Yeah, between 25 and 32, pretty much. Yeah, if I look back on mine, so that makes it a lot of money.
Okay.
I don't know what the answers are. It's just maybe it is as it is, as you say, factual. But I just thought I'd share my thoughts. And Chris has got.
Okay, let me look at potentially is then, because I'm very conscious for the people that max out the attendances, then you fall in that higher category of the analysis. You know, analysis is trying to find a common ground which would work. Let me take some numbers away and see whether if we get to a higher amount, whether we can maybe try and bring the banding down a little bit, because if you're doing it in a single transaction, again, that doesn't create any further extra work for us or inefficiency, which again, slightly blunt way of saying it, but let me see if there's something we can do for slightly higher numbers, because we will recognize against a high number that might cause a bit of an issue. So let me take that away, Liz.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just confirm that, Damien? I think I've already said this to you. One of our principles from the start was to get big numbers on programs. That was the Springboard principle, to get it accessible to as many women as possible. Mm-hmm. Now, this year and last year, my numbers are lower because of pandemic and so on. But I'm in exactly the same position as Liz. I would normally be looking for 30, 32, and until 2020, that's what my groups were. And that's what it's been a big selling point to clients. And for me, the principle of what Springboard was about. So I won't complicate the issue right now because I know we're up on time, but I do think it's a very important thing to consider.
Okay. I hear you, Chris, and Liz as well. So let me take those numbers away and see if we can get, when you're delivering those high numbers, and we can go from there. Again, for the people that are delivering perhaps the smaller numbers, again, depending on what you charge your clients, I think it probably works out no difference really, just a different mechanism of collecting it. But let me look at the larger numbers for you.
Great, thank you, Damien. Obviously, Damien will come back on those individual points, and we'll come to some sort of resolution. I'm just wary now that we're getting close to the end of time. So is there any AOB or questions generally that you'd like to throw at myself or Damien? Or Damien, is there anything you would have thrown into the pot?
No, not particularly. I say I'll take the feedback around the participant fees away. Really interested to hear your thoughts on the further thoughts on the supplements. We'll make sure we get a supplement session arranged. I've posted the other topics into the chat, so the top 6 categories that we found. And again, maybe further explore those ideas we talked around about how using supplements as an engagement tool for further sessions, day 5s or whatever you want to call them with your clients, will be useful, because again, I think if it's things we can share, then we certainly will do. And then as soon as we finish the session tomorrow and got the rest of the feedback, then again we'll share it so people can see what we're thinking. And yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
Great. Just a question from Damien is all of these sessions have been marketing based, but Deborah said, could we do one on hybrid facilitation? Is that something that between your ops team we could do for the next one?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks, Nick. I thought it'd be good to have something practical. I think that's the way we're going, is hybrid. I'm getting all my live sessions are now got people that are, the expectation is that they can just dial in virtually because they're so used to doing it that way. And it's exhausting from being on from 8 till 4:30 in the afternoon and having 2 different facilitation types for different groups. I'm absolutely shattered. So, I mean, I would love to, you know, either share some tips or get some insight into sharing some good business practices as well.
Perfect. For the next session, we'll do it on a more operationally based in the hybrid facilitation, so you don't have to listen to me again. Guys, brilliant. Thank you so much. We've run slightly over. Oh, sorry, Shendo. Question? You're on mute.
Sorry, I was waving. I've got 9 o'clock. I've got to.
I'm sorry, I thought you put your hand up.
Okay, cheers.
Right. Thank everybody. I'll send out a feedback email with the slides and the recordings, and then we'll come back with the next date as soon as possible. So thank you everybody for everybody's time. As I said, our door's open if you've got any further questions or help or advice needed. Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Good session. Thank you.